Okay, thank you very much for accepting me my abstract. What I'm about to present you is a work in progress. So everything is not totally formalized and finished and well polished and so on. And so I'd be happy if there were feedbacks to help me improve my work. And I'm gonna ask us very simple question is, what does space mean? And the work I'm in today relies on three hypotheses. Our first goal was to have a reflection about mobility studies because my colleague Bertrand Montulet, who's working with me, and I do think that there's a need to widen the scope of mobility studies. And our three hypotheses are these. First one, we are facing a new way of seeing space and time, and thus mobility. The idea is that we face a shift of social representations of space and time. Thus, it's here about representations of space and time, not real space or real time. This is not about this. So the space I'm speaking about is also social space, conceptual space, moral space, whatever you want. Everything that can be described as a space. Second hypothesis is that mobility is a concept able to enlighten lots of social behavior. Because if you assume that spaces can be multiple in the society, you can assume that the question of mobility is an interrogation to family, moral conception, political conceptions, and so on. So the scope can be wide, and this is one of the benefits of, we think, of our reflection, is to try to insert mobility studies, geographical mobility studies, in a broader interrogation of mobilities today. Third hypothesis is that we face a shift in ideology. I mean a discourse, a prescriptive and descriptive discourse, which impacts the way we conceive mobilities. Thus here I'll talk about discourses, not practices. It's really important to keep the distinction clear, because, or as clear as possible, because if discourses impacts on practices, it's not because there's a new discourse, even a new overwhelming discourse, that practices do change radically. So it's about space and time. Why? Because mobility is just a displacement in space through a certain amount of time. I think that, first of all, we must conceive that we are facing new experiences of social spaces and times. Two examples. When we work with ICTs, with this or my iPad or I don't know, we face new experiences of space and times. It's very simple to understand. When I'm here with the Wi-Fi, I can just check my mails, and it's just like if I was at home, because at home it's just as if I was at work, because I work at home. So we have a new experience which imposes itself to us, excuse me. Another example concerning a question of time, it's the beginning and the end of the life. At the beginning of the life, in the former 50 years ago, a child was born and everybody waited to see if he was living and if he would live. And at the end of the life, suddenly they said, he doesn't breathe anymore, and everybody knew he was dead. But today, the experience of these two ontological momentums in man's life are considerably different, because when a child is born, we have to decide if he's alive or not, and we can bring him alive if he's born too early, and we face the question of, is he alive or not? Will he live or not? Will I decide that he will live? And it's the same at the end of the life. I don't have to remind Ariel Sharon, which is who is a good example, because he's cerebrally dead, but he's still in a hospital. So is he alive? Is he dead? We face new experiences of time, and this is very striking, I think, because these two instances were the most important, those who were part of our destinies. But we also build new relationships with spaces and times. For example, the confusion between private and public spaces. It depends on new experiments, but it depends also on social conventions, on social agreements. What is legitimate? Is it legitimate to be called at work by my wife asking me if I can go and pick up the children at school? Is it legitimate to check my professional mails at home in the evening? These questions are part of a new way of building spaces in our societies. And this confusion is the confusion we build. It's possible because we have ICTs, but it's also possible because we want to do this. We want to modify our Facebook status at work just because we thought about the party we had yesterday in the evening. It's the same for time. So spaces and times, we do practice we do have new ways of using spaces and times, and of conceiving spaces and times. And these constructions have a lot to do with legitimacy. It depends on what we think is legitimate to do or not to do. Talking about time, there's an important question, is the question of borders. Bertrand Montulet and I have imagined two opposite models, two ideal types, which are ideal types, no realities, an anchorage-based model and a mobilitarian one. What is the anchorage-based model? It's based on separated spaces as territories and static time as eras. I explain. Space is seen as a vertical and horizontal succession of spaces characterized by their borders and inner uniformities. Inside the border, it's always the same. To take an example, the space of men, the gender. What is a man? What is a woman? In this model, man is conceived as something surrounded by a border. They are men and non-men, male and non-male. I should say, I think. Excuse me, but in French it's more confused. There's male and non-male, and inside everything which is male. That's it. So there's an inner uniformity and a closed border. What is the time that corresponds to this space? It's a static time, based on an era. Because if you want to say that there's an uniformity inside a space, you have to stop time, because time makes things change. And so if you say, this city is in this area, and it stops here, you have to say, it's not forever, but it's for a long time, and this new house there, yeah, but it's outside. It's not the city. And this other one, no, not. It's outside. So you have to stop time if you want to preserve your border and your inner uniformity. So what is mobility in this context? Mobility is seen as a trip through and to different territories. It implies border crossings and temporal ruptures. Because you go somewhere else where you'll belong to, in a new era that's opening. If you think about social mobility, you want to make a rise in your social position. So you want to quit one social position to gain another one, and to belong to this new position, and to open a new era in your life by being from a little bourgeoisie to a great bourgeois, I would say. Okay, for instance. Thus, mobility is very specific. It's a teleological mobility. What's the other model, the mobilitarian one? It's made of continuous spaces, seen as expanses, and flowing time based on a permanent present. Space is then seen as a continuum of interpenetrated expanses. Between Prato and Firenze, what's the difference? Where is the limit? If you see it on Google Maps, you see that there are houses everywhere. So, in this case, you can just conceive that the two cities are interpenetrating themselves, them. One another. Thank you. So there are no fixed borders, no inner homogeneity anymore. It's a continuum, and there's more center, more peripheral, but not inside or outside. Spaces are defined by their relationships and not by their borders. Time is thus a flow, a constant flow, because it changes all the time, and so you don't have any references to clear eras and clear ruptures in the time. Okay? What can be mobility in this way of thinking space and time? It's utopia and uchrony. It's in absence of spatial and time reference marks, the nature of mobility changes. It becomes both inevitable and erratic. If everything changes constantly, if there are no clear borders, if you're in a continuum, you are always moving. And if you think that you stay at the same place, it's just the space around you that moves. You thought that you were living outside the city, and one day you realize that you are in the city. This is this idea. Your house didn't move, but the space around you did. So mobility can't be teleological, because everything's always moving, and if you fix a goal, when you get to this place, you see that the goal has itself moved to anywhere else. So these two models